Shetland has 18 community council areas, and they're very, very different. You have some, Scalloway for example is quite a populated area, and where you have other community councils in small remote islands with a very low population. But I suppose something that's kind of special to Shetland is the level of volunteering and participation that goes in. Can take 18 community councils, all functioning, all achieving, all quite active, and communities being quite well served, I would say, by them. It's fantastic, and that's down to the voluntary effort and the determination of people in their own community.
Scalloway is the second largest settlement in Shetland after Lerwick. It was a former fishing village, but it still gets a lot of its trade from the sea because the salmon farming is very popular in the area, and also we get supply boats coming in from the west side of Shetland for oil industry.
Currently has about 1,300 residents. It's got quite a mixed age demographic. There's quite a lot of young people here.
Well, Recreate Scalloway is a community-led design initiative. It came from the Scottish Government Making Places funding, I suppose. There had been a series of issues identified in Scalloway that the community were hoping to look at how they could address.
Well, there's a few issues in the village that were being looked at. Traffic on the street, parking is very bad. There's some old derelict industrial buildings that need to be dealt with. There's all kinds of things like that if we got them highlighted, and we could move forward to get something done about them.
As far as this project goes, I was working closely with the Community Council on other issues, so I got involved in supporting them in developing their ideas around this.
And so, with access to that funding, there was the opportunity there to engage the relevant town planning consultants with a background in developing this type of project, these type of outcomes. And so there's a certain advantage in that. Complete lack of prejudice or prior knowledge allowed them to enter into it being totally open to suggestion and to consider things from a town planning and a wider consultation perspective. There's been really good engagement for a village of this size. The turnout to the workshops that our hired consultants held, response was above average or above what was expected.
We went around with questionnaires. Members of the community knocked on every single door in Scalloway and gave them a questionnaire to fill out about the village and all the issues that were going to come up in the Recreate Scalloway. And as well as filling in the questionnaires, obviously we had a bit of conversation with the people on the doorsteps. And that was followed up by meetings here in the Scalloway Hall, where we had consultants. Consultants had big maps. They drew up the various areas. They mapped out things for transport, for possible sites for housing, and this was discussed with the people at the various workshops.
The online response has been particularly good. A lot of people have been attracted into it who otherwise probably wouldn't have left the house to come to a public hall to sit in a workshop type event, but they've still had ample opportunity to provide their input from the comfort of their own homes and computers or smart devices.
Somebody drew up a series of posters with just a simple question on them, like, what do you like about Scalloway? What could be improved in Scalloway? And every day one of them was put on the Scalloway Community Council Facebook page, and we invited comments. Some of them got more comments than others, but probably were a bit more controversial, but it did help engage with the people in the village. Well, I think engage the public from the start. That was, I think, probably the most important thing. One thing I think that you probably have to work on is the art of the possible. There are a few things came up that actually are probably never going to happen because they're going to impinge on somebody's land, and that person is not necessarily wanting to use that land for that purpose.
It's really important on a project like this to work together with the council and businesses and other organisations, because it can provide a holistic overview, drawing together the various parties and their very distinct and sometimes disparate needs and requirements. Development planners, plan officers will undoubtedly have a different view to the community itself. So a community council working together with development planning provides a much more effective conduit to hopefully achieving better outcomes in the future. Enter into something like this with complete blue sky thinking. You also need to work together with the consultants to establish the practicality and feed in some of the local knowledge and prior knowledge that is unknown to them, to keep it on track to yield an outcome that is deliverable and isn't entirely aspirational and perhaps disjointed with the community. It has to stay connected with the community throughout, and hopefully the resulting package plan at the end of it should be tangible, pragmatic and achievable as a result.
I think so far it's been quite a positive process, but it hasn't finished. We have to get a final report, and then the next thing is actually to get moving to get some of the things done, because the things that will cost money, it's identifying the source of funds for them.
I would hope that as a result of the Recreate Scalloway project happening, there will be a range of things brought together as a place plan that cover, I'll say, readily achievable projects that provide input into the local development plan for wider settlement planning, and also provide aspirational goals for longer term planning of the village and its growth and development. Take every step to identify short-term goals as well as the medium and long-term goals of a consultation such as this, so that there could and should be ways that people can see that their opinion has been heard, that it's been considered to be worthwhile, and that something will happen as an outcome of the effort that they've put into it. Because the worst case scenario is to develop a community plan or a local place plan that arrives on a shelf and remains there, and people walk away from it saying, what happened there? That's your worst possible outcome.
Benefits of the Recreate Scalloway work is it's brought the community together. No community is ever going to completely agree on anything, but you got them in and talking to one another and engaging on issues that they might not normally engage on. They were encouraged to come up with solutions and to look at it as how can they help themselves in their community, not just necessarily relying on other people coming in to sort stuff for them. It's about how can they work together. And I think it's been really good for the community council. It's raised their profile and they're been able to engage with their constituents a lot better, I think.
I don't know if that was all good, to be quite honest. That so far anyway, as I say, we're still waiting on the results coming through, the final results. But we had a lot of interest with a lot of things were identified that could be done, and things that maybe nobody thought about were brought up.